This is my second video on the VMV A2. I took down the first one because I made a big mistake, which I'll explain later. Now, by the time I took down the first video, it was already watched by thousands of people. So I figure, if I'm going to upload another VMV A2 video, I might as well do it differently. So the first part of today's video will be me going over the Class D VMV A2. And the second part of the video will be me comparing Class D A2 versus the Class A A1 amp. Now, for those of you who have never heard of the VMV brand, it is the premium line of SMSL. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard of SMSL brand from Asia, right? Between you and me, I would love to be in that room the day SMSL's marketing team decided on creating a premium line. What were they thinking of? Let's make a premium line. And the only thing differentiating our premium line is the color of the LCD, a metal remote, and the printed name. We will use the same color, same shape, same size, same knobs, and same body material. Really? Fortunately, they have a fantastic engineering team. Every SMSL product I've reviewed is very good. You want a high-performing DAC? The SMSL D1 SE is excellent. You want a good desktop near-field speaker? The SMSL Tababuya is one of the best I've tried. And I have tried more speakers on my desk than most people take showers in a week. You want to experience the Class A linear sound at an affordable price? The SMSL VMV A1. So, given most of my past experience with SMSL are extremely positive, my expectations were really high. This A2 is their top-of-the-line Class D amp, so obviously it is light years ahead of the entry-level ones. Did the A2 wow me, just like the rest of their products? Now, let's talk about it today. Remember I said I made a big mistake in my original A2 video, which I should be punished for by not allowing me to listen to music for a week? Yeah, in the original video I said Hi-Fi go send me the unit, but it was Hi-Fi Express. I guess I'm at that age where my ability to remember lyrics from the 80s songs is better than why I walk into the kitchen. Why is it important for me enough to take down the video? Now, I'd like to take a moment to explain that. See, it is a win for all of us if you buy from the online store that sent me the product. Now, with online stores, not manufacturers, not retail stores, not distributors, only online stores, I have one rule. If it is good enough for me to review, I would not send it back. Ever since I made that rule, if I'm not mistaken, I will mention it in the video or check the box, this video is sponsored. Here is the problem with the VMV A1 video. Now, a lot of people saw that video and bought the unit, but not at Hi-Fi Express. It's a bit like in the old days, right? People go to the brick and mortar store to listen to a product, and then they go buy it at the cheapest possible place. So, as a result, that killed off the retail stores. Now, when it comes to SMSL products, I only agreed to take it from Hi-Fi Express. It is a loyalty thing for me. They were the first to offer me to review, and I will stick with them for all SMSL products. So, if you're planning to buy SMSL products, and if my video is the reason you end up buying it, do consider using them. You win because I will keep getting products in for review. Now, I'm sure some of you are asking, so how can you be honest then? You know what? I should make a video on it one day, but this is not today's topic. Now, I did get a coupon code from them, so if you're planning to use it, I'll put it in the description. So, the $1,000 USD VMV A2. I'm just going to call it A2. This is an integrated amp with everything built in. You have one analog input, a DAC with a USB in, a subwoofer out, Bluetooth, remote, and a Class D amp. that is rated at 100 watts into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 ohms. The Class D amp is from STMicro, and there's mention of using digital feedback technology on their site. So how does it sound? It is a bit complicated because it has tone control. I told you the engineers are good. Fantastic. I love tone control. And even has a few equalizer preset. So the sound will depend on your settings. When I think of SMSL, I think of hyper detail, clean and very transparent. Interestingly, at the default setting, the A2 top-end extension is not like that. It does not have the last word in detail, transparency, and refinement, but it is still clean and clear enough that you know you're getting that modern sound. I would say the top end is pretty neutral, so it actually pairs well with my Focal speakers. The upper mid-range has that typical Class D leanness, but the lower mid, yeah, it's not, because the strong bass does carry over to the mids, giving it a bit of meat. The mid-range is interesting because I feel there's a bit of energy in the upper mids, and with some speakers it can be slightly on the shouty side, while other speakers it brings life and energy. For example, the CSS rolled-off speakers I just reviewed. Now with the A2, it sounds so much livelier and better when compared to my Macintosh MAC670 that costs many times more. Always a question of matching. Now the bass is great with this A2, dynamic, strong, and fast. The soundstage is decently big, and I feel this amp has quite a bit of juice. You know, some 100-watt Class D amps, they feel like a wimp, but not this. This A2 feels like it has plenty of power. In terms of negative, besides the upper mids can be slightly energetic at times, what else should you be aware of? It comes with a small fan, and it is slightly audible when no music is playing. In terms of positive, what can I say? My audio buddy Mr. Jazz told me when he compared it to his Lindorf 1120 that cost double, the A2 did not embarrass itself. It was actually quite similar. With Mr. Quad, he was impressed that it can drive his Quad 2905 no problem. Now, I wonder if it has to do with the digital feedback technology. For those who don't know, the Quad 2905 needs a nuclear power plant to drive, and this small amp can do it, which is quite impressive. I have to say, the bass is pretty shocking, because when I drove my Focal 836W hard, man, I was able to feel the gentle vibration on the floor, and I remember my wife, who was on the second floor above me, told me one night, she can feel the floor vibrating. Interestingly, we thought it should have no problem driving the Manapan LRS, but it did not sound good with the LRS. Perhaps it is because the upper mid is a bit too energetic that when we try with the LRS, yeah, it sounded a bit strained. Remember, I mentioned this is not a hyper detail amp. Mr. Quad actually prefers that because he found the slight layback presentation more to his taste, right? Or a question of taste, because Mr. Vintage, on the other hand, wished that it was a bit more refined and detailed. So, how did the A1 Class A amp compare to the A2 Class D amp? I was curious and I asked myself, if I had $1,000 USD, which one would I choose? I think the SMSL A1 Class A amp, which I've reviewed in the past, is an amp that everybody who has a pair of sensitive speakers should own. I personally prefer it over the slightly less expensive Reisong A12. The SMSL A1 is that good. The Class D A2 amp that we're talking about today is $1,000, right? The Class A A1 is about $650. So fortunately, I had a $300 Aune X8 DAC at my home. So when I pair with the A1, yeah, it's about $1,000. So now both A1 and A2 are $1,000. For my purpose, testing purpose, I chose a speaker that has average sensitivity. Focal 1008 BE, 89 dB, but it's actually a bit more difficult to drive than that. And it dips down to 4 ohms. This speaker has a brilliant tweeter, so it is very revealing. With the Class A-ish A1, I call it A-ish because it's not true Class A, but heavily biased into Class A, the A1 is more detailed, more refined, The mid-range has more texture. The bass is not fat, but adequate. I like Class A mid-range. Voices feel more realistic, slightly more forward, and have good body. Class A mid-range sounds more linear, and if you never experienced Class A mid-range, you should. Now, when I switch to the Class D A2, man, what a difference. Just like other Class D amp, I find it on the neutral side, so I had to play with tone control. With bass plus 2, now compared to the Class A A1, I now get power, the bass digs deeper, and it is stronger. You can feel the weight of the bass instrument, and that makes the presentation fuller and surprisingly warmer. In the sense that there's more meat in the presentation. Soundstage is bigger, and when I listen to the Wonder Woman soundtrack, the Class D A2 is fast, exciting, and the amp controls the bass drivers really well. I was telling myself, man, this is impressive. This little small unit can drive my focal speakers, no problem. The A1 Class A amp, on the other hand, with the Wonder Woman soundtrack, yeah, it feels slower, less exciting, and it felt like it was really being pushed. Now, I want to emphasize, okay, that I'm using a harder to drive speaker on purpose. You see, in the past, I used my A1 with mostly like 93 dB sensitivity speakers and up. I know what the A1 can do. I was sure it was going to beat the Class D A2 before this A/B test, but now I'm not so sure anymore. If I were to guess, most people probably would choose the Class D A2 at an audio show because of raw power and impressive bass. If you're more into critical listening, refinement, have a pair of sensitive speakers, and you love that linear mid-range with lots of texture, you will prefer the Class A A1 like me. So let's wrap it up. So what did 4 of my audio buddies who have also tested the amp think of the SMSL A2? Is it good? Yes, it is good for the money. If you asked me 3 years ago, I would say, man, just run and go buy it. It is excellent. But today with so many high-performing, affordable integrated amp, I would say the A2 is good. Did it live up to my expectations? Yes and no. The problem is my expectations. With most SMSL products I have tried, they can compete with higher price items. You take a $1,000 SMSL D1 SE DAC and put it against my other $3,000 DAC, it can compete no problem. So my expectation for this D2 is that it can compete with other more expensive Class D amps I have here, but not really. What are some of the common complaints with Class D? Class D can be a bit dry. It doesn't have as much body in the mid-range. Now, most of the more expensive Class D amp I have now, yeah, they have pretty much solved this problem, to the point that I can't really tell anymore if it is Class D or not. So my expectations was the A2 also have solved this problem too. But I would say, it solved about 80% of it. I was expecting this A2 to perform many times its asking price, just like other SMSL products I have. While it does outperform my expectations in a few areas, overall it performs within what I expect from a sub $1,000 unit. Look, I know we all love the dream. We want to pay $1,000 and get $3,000 performance. I would say DAC and preamp these days, not impossible. But so far, my experience when it comes to amp under $1,000, nope, you get what you pay for. Like Azure, Vider, yep, you get what you pay for. So I want to set your expectations properly. The A2, as I mentioned, is quite impressive for bass, soundstage, speed, control, and options. Options, which is the ability to fine-tune with tone control and equalizer. Don't forget, you can do wonders with tone control. Also, it is small. A small footprint is a big selling point for this amp. You can ask, why don't you get an IOTA VX or a BC acoustic amp? Well, those don't have USB input, so if your source is your computer, you're out of luck. Also, those amps are bigger and might not be desk friendly. Finally, those amps don't seem to have the same control on the woofer as this A2. Sure, Those amps are more refined on the top end. So once again, it comes to a question of what is important to you. So in short, if you have difficult to drive speakers and you want to bring out the bass, get this. You need USB for your source. You're looking for an all-in-one solution with a small footprint. You want Bluetooth, subwoofer out, and don't want to spend more than $1,000? Yeah, the A2 can be a good solution for you. Alright, I think that's about it. Finally, if you're interested in buying any SMSL products, you'll be indirectly helping this channel out by purchasing it from Hi-Fi Express. I'll put the coupon code. Besides that, I think, yeah, that's about it then. I'll see you next time.
It's not